Shouldn't take too long.
All right. Okay, now we are switching from max cuts to min cuts, and Pachara will tell us about minimum SD cuts with fewer cut points.
All right. Thanks for the opportunity to speak here. I'll be talking about recent work with Danupon and Yonger from API. It's about min cuts, so switching the flavors, I guess. So the title of the work is the minimum SD cuts with fewer categories. But if I'm allowed to be more specific, I would say it like this. Basically, min SD cuts into combination models, which I'm going to define quickly. But if there's like one takeaway message from this talk that you're going to get, I hope it to be like this one-line statement that in this paper we give like a new model in algorithms that to attack the flow problems. So the algorithm that we give is probably going to be like the most natural or like the most elegant algorithms you see. Its runtime is like oranges, it's like exponential time, but it works really well in like these two settings I can talk about. So for the next 9 minutes, my hope is to like give a very superficial description of the paper and try to convince you like how we come up with like these like I don't know unusual complexity and maybe touch a bit on the algorithms. So that's the hope. I may be too ambitious to do all of that. Let's see. Okay, so yesterday I talked about category a little bit. I realized I didn't do a best job yesterday, so let me try again today. So these category models, as an algorithm designer, we want to solve like some paths on the graph. But the catch is that we don't see a graph. Okay? The only things we can do is we can ask the oracle who actually sees a graph. We can ask it like what is the cut size of these set of orienties that we give. Like, for example, if I ask the oracle the cut size, I cut it at the vertex t on the right, I should get like 3 in return. So the blue edges. I can also ask like what is the cut at A and S, I should get 4 in return. And like my hope is that I asked it like a few queries, and then at the end I just like solve a task that I want to solve. In this case, it's just a SD cut. Another setting that I care about is the communication setting. In this model, I guess there are 2 players, and they hold the like edge partitions of the graph. The 2 players can like send a message back and forth between them, but they also have like unlimited computation power and don't really care what they do locally, but only care about the amount of communications that they talk to come up with like the answers. You might ask like why we care about these 2 computation models. For the communications, I guess like the reason we care is like it's a very, very little restrictive mode of computations. It's usually like a good test bed of your algorithms. You know, algorithms whether the test is good or not. You may want to think about it in a computation setting and see like if it's like works well, then you have like whole set works well in different models as well. Right? You also like I guess a lot of lower bounds in like streaming or like space computations will come from the communication setting. So that might be the reason why you care. For category, the reason it's a bit subtle is that in categories, specifically for min cut problems, it has like a tight connections with the broader class of problem called the Sawettamalya function minimizations, but we don't really have to get into that. It's just like some like canonical example of that problem. So specifically, I'll be concerning about the min SD cut problems, and the landscape is that you can always do things through in these convolution models. For communication, you can just like exchange the graph with players. For the category model, you can learn the whole graph using n-square queries. So this is like a triviality n-square, right? In the sense of graph, this is linear. Right? Graph has like n-square representation. The goal is always to go like sublinear. But actually, like the only things we know sublinear, the only complexity we know is n to the 5/3. I guess everything starts with this work of Rubinstein, Tram, and Weiber. The algorithms does this randomized algorithms, but they consider in the like category computation. It also implies the computation complexity, but the underlying statement is like the complexity we know is n to the 5/3, like both randomized and deterministic. And deterministic one is actually by Anand, Sandra, and Wang in Soda 25.
For the cut query, do you only know how many edges there are, or do you know the labels of them?
You only know the number of edges, so that makes it a little bit more tricky.
So it's not like 100% obvious that you can even
recover the graph. But you can learn the whole graph using n queries, m log n queries and n queries. But it's not too hard to see, but just need to like sit down and think about it. So these are basically the only things we know. And our work just improved on this complexity a little bit. Okay, so for category, we get into 8 or 5, into 1.6. For communication, we get into 1.58. It's very unlikely that this is true. I wouldn't believe if someone tells me the complexity into 1 over 7. So it's probably more room to improve on these arguments. But this is just like a statement that 5 is not the right answer. Okay. I should be upfront and tell you that in the communities of continuous organization people, they have an observation that you can do n to the 1.5 in communications. But I don't really know anything about those. The setting could be I would say I will leave it up to you if you think it's comparable or not. But to me, it's a different setting. Okay. I'm way behind on time. I'm gonna rush a little bit. So the starting point of algorithm is the RSW algorithms. They use n to the 5/3, but if you open up that proof, look at it more carefully, stare at it for an hour, you realize that their complexity can be improved a little bit to be parameterized by the size of the mean cut. You can get n to the 4/3 over mean cut to rise to 1/3 categories and a little bit differently from the communications. So you might ask why do you even care about this parameterized improvement as far as you know mean cut could be n. And this brings me back to So the reason is that I can propose these two-step meta algorithms. The first step is going to find a large flow graph that is only delta away additively from the true mid-cut max flow size. And then I'm going to use that flow to construct a residue graph. And then just find the mean cut of residue graph. If you follow these two steps, you can verify that this gives you a correct mean SD cut. And if I apply the improved RSW algorithms on the second step, I get these complexities for each model. So the hope is that if I'm going to set that to sublinear, even n to 0.99, I already beat 5/3 in the second step.
So what is delta?
Delta is I should be more careful. Delta is the first step you get delta away for tuning cut. Mean ST cut. And then once you use that to be a residual graph, then you have your residual graph behind your delta. So it just plugs into the sub. Right, so as I say, if you put in delta to be true sublinear n to 0.99, you already beat 5/3. So the hope is that if you can do a first step more efficiently, you beat 5/3 or more. So this is where our algorithm comes in. Basically, we do the first step in n squared over delta complexity. And if you combine the two steps, you get these numbers that I promised you about. Okay, for the last 1 minute, I'm gonna go over how you do the first step very superficially. So for the first step, we are going to look at these intermediate problems. And this problem, let's say okay, let's think of it as you don't really care about the mode of computation right now. Just think of it as I don't know, you can do anything about it. You're given a graph, subgraph h of g, whose max flow size is k away from the true max flow size. And your goal really is just to add some edges from g to h so that your max flow, so that the gap becomes half, just halving the gap. So the overarching idea is algorithm does this in square over k complexity. So, but I claim that once we do this, we are done. Because I can just start from an empty graph and just keep halving the gap again and again and again until I get the gap to be delta, which is what I want, and everything sums up nicely. So I'm just going to focus on these intermediate questions. Okay, everyone's still with me. So the way we do this is actually very simple. If I have to describe it in one line, it would say it's greedy witness elimination argument. So what it means by that is we're going to come up with a notion of a witness for a graph. And this witness basically certifies that your graph has been cut smaller than delta for the value of delta. And really the algorithm is just greatly decreasing the number of witnesses until it reaches 0, which means it has no witness left. And once that's the case, you can just look at this step and it just means that your cuts are already large. Right? It's very standard greedy argument. And what we need to do is just to argue that we don't have too many edges. And that's the part of it. So really, the devils is really the details. You really have to define the notional brilliance very carefully. If you look at these like green statement, the first thing that should come to mind is just like a small cuts, just by the maximum min cut theorem. What we really ends up using is actually a small cut, but we also add some like notions of redundancy, so that really helps us with the greedy argument, and also help us with like to guarantee that we don't have too many edges, and to handle the simulations in for commercial models that I talked about earlier. So after all these things, algorithms can be simulated very trivially in the communications and non-trivially in cut queries. I can say that in the cut query models, the simulation is actually like very similar to like some property testing regimes that to me is quite surprising that you can simulate the greedy algorithms in cut queries. So that could be like something to be proud of, I guess. Okay, I'm going to end up with one slide. This is just like the whole pipeline of algorithms. And really the biggest problem for me is just to get that one part time. And if you can beat that, I will be very surprised. But and so I tried to go to you. Right, that's all I have.
We can have a quick question before the break. Talia, do you have one? No, hey, let's take the speaker again. We have eaten into our break time a little bit, but I propose that we go back to the schedule, so we'll start.